Hello, everyone. This is John Lee, your local real estate agent. And everyone, you are in for a treat. People have been asking, who is my mentor? Who do I look up to? And here we are, Nick Tang. Nick Tang has taught me so much about the real estate game and also has been a huge influence in just the real estate community. And here we are, Nick. If you can give us an introduction.
Hey guys, my name is Nick. I never really thought I was your mentor. That was never my goal. Um, I personally love teaching. I got into it, I would say like 14, 15 years ago. And I had a fear of stage fright. So speaking in front of a lot of people was very scary for me.
Right.
But as I got into it, I realized like I fell in love with it, but I realized something deeper. I realized like, hey, like, sharing what you know actually helps you get smarter. And at the same time, like it was an opportunity for me to learn how to teach my kids.
Right.
And so that was my goal was never to be anybody's like, mentor, but my goal was really just to share everything. And I always also did one thing that was really interesting that a lot of people in my team doesn't like, and that is I share what we do like right this moment.
Right.
And it creates competition. But what I got out of it was it pushed me to innovate. It pushes me to, think deeper, farther out, and figure out how to do it better.
Right.
And so my goal was always been to share, what I know. But yeah, quick introduction. I got started in real estate investing 15 years ago. Always been an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur ever since I was 17. I remember my parents told me a long time ago, "Hey, Nick, my Vietnamese name is Trung. So hey, Trung, like you gotta wake up at the right time, go to sleep at the right time, so that way you can have a job in the future." Like and I don't wake up at the right time. I don't go to sleep at the right time to this day, and I, I used to think it was like a flaw that I had, but the day I realized it was a power, meaning it was like, hey, I'm not supposed to have a job. I'm supposed to figure out how to make this lifestyle work. It was the day, kind of like it was like a wake up call. One of my wake up calls that changed my life, where I started making moves so that way I didn't have to wake up versus trying to fit into society. But yeah, I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I've lost all my money before. I've done it two times already in my life, and it's really powerful. I personally think making money with money is great. It's really powerful. It goes a long way.
Mhm.
But when I lost all my money and I had to figure out how to make money with no money, that was where the real power came from.
Right.
And I learned how to do that with real estate. And so those late night infomercials that you see on TV, they're real. They work. I got started with real estate with no money, from wholesaling houses to eventually rehabbing, holding houses, and now I just kind of like really do whatever I want because I built a business and a portfolio that allows me to just be irresponsible
Right.
and continue to be irresponsible.
If we can go back a little bit, Nick, for our listeners, what exactly is wholesaling and how did you even start? Because I know that was one of your first things that was an introduction to you, at least in the real estate side. Now, we can sit here for like 3 hours and talk about how you have all these other
Yeah,
entrepreneurial things
right.
from doing nightclubs, right, to doing car shows. I mean, there's so many things. I mean, you could write a book, and some of the stories I hear, I crack up because,
Hilarious. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. They're
yeah,
ridiculous and hilarious. Yeah.
yeah. But at least with I guess for now we'll just stick on real estate.
Yeah.
How you got into real estate. I know you got in from wholesaling, so if you could just describe to our listeners what exactly wholesaling is.
Yeah. Well, what wholesaling is it's a way to put a house under contract, and the goal is to just put it under contract for the right price, and you can then sell that contract to somebody else for more money. That's really it. Um, I mean, the problem with society and even with me when I first started with wholesaling was when I was introduced to it. I was broke. And even as a broke person, not having any money, wholesaling was always been a way to, flip houses with no money, because all you had to do was just put a house under contract for the right price. You didn't have to buy it, you know, you just have to put it on contract for the right price, and then find someone else that wants to buy the rights to buy that contract. I mean,
Right.
to buy that house for more money. And so you never had to buy the house, but when even when I was broke and I had no money to buy, I didn't think it was a real thing, because what I'm trying to say is, like, a person with money hearing something like that, they automatically think it's too good to be true. It's unbelievable. It's a scam, blah, 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 blah. But even as a broke person, I had nothing to lose, and the hearing such a concept was unbelievable.
Right.
And I didn't believe it when my friend, my classmate, introduced it to me. And I was broke, he was broke. He wanted to flip houses, and I didn't believe it. And anyway, I didn't really give it a shot until I saw his life change.
Right.
He went from driving his, beat up car that we used to race, me and him, to driving a brand new G35, living at his parents' house, to moving to a luxury apartment. And once I saw that change within like such a short period of time, I was like, I'm gonna give this a shot.
Right.
And so that's what holds. So I'll tell my story with my first wholesale deal. Um, so he used to invite me to go out, post up bandit signs all the time, and I didn't know what that was. I didn't care about it until I saw his life change, and afterwards I would go on the web, research it. I bought these "We Buy Houses" signs. I actually just bought some today. That's the craziest part.
Oh,
Right?
nice.
Yeah, I haven't done marketing in such a long time, but
Oh,
I just
wow.
bought some today,
Yeah.
and it would say like "We Buy Houses" and then the phone number, and then like avoid foreclosure at the bottom.
Right.
And I went out and posted them up at night because I didn't want to get seen posting them up.
Right.
And crazy enough, I bought 100 signs, and I got over 150 phone calls from people trying to sell their house. You're gonna get calls from the police. You're gonna get calls from the town officials, zoning, all this stuff, because you're advertising without a permit.
Right.
The thing is, you're also never. It's impossible for you to get a permit for these things. So as much as I want to get a permit, you can't, right?
Right.
But I posted it up. I got 150 phone calls. I would say in the first 10 phone calls, I would get, police, town officials, things like that. But thereafter, it was just all people with different situations trying to sell their house. And I was very new at the time, so um, I didn't know how to take advantage of all the opportunities. But what I did know was, hey, I gotta find a house really cheap. And so I met this seller. He was going through a divorce, and I showed up to his house. I was a lot younger then. I might look like a kid now, and if you think I do, I look even younger back then. And I talked to him, and I was like dressed up really nice. I drove my parents' nice looking car. And I try to represent myself like as like a rich person that can actually afford to buy their house. And I went in there. I thought I had to like negotiate and all this stuff. And he was like, Nick, I'm going through a divorce. I can't afford to make my payments anymore. I'm gonna lose the house in 2 months. I got nothing to lose. If you can buy the house for me, that's great. Things like that. And then I, went into further details with him on the property, and I found out that he was underwater. So I had to do a short sale on it. But in the end, I got the house short sale approval for 115, and literally within like 2 weeks later or a week later, I got a buyer for 165, and I wholesaled the house. And
Wow.
I spent like literally probably $400
Right.
on everything, $200 for marketing material, and another $100, $200 for gas and like BS stuff. That's
Well,
it.
well, for our listeners, although you didn't spend a lot of like physical money, right?
Yeah,
There
yeah.
was a lot of sweat equity involved, and I know you mentioned that, hey, you have a certain lifestyle where, like, just for our listeners, we're at 4 p.m. right now here Eastern time. And
Yeah.
I was like, Nick, yesterday, I was like, Nick, are you okay meeting up at 3? And you're like, yo, that's a little too early because I'm still sleeping. So I was like, all right, you know what? Like, hey, this is Nick's lifestyle. But I think what people get confused about is the things that you did to get those numbers. And the story I still remember that you told was like in the middle of winter,
Oh yeah,
putting
yeah,
up.
yeah. I didn't say that
You
because
wanna
I didn't
tell
know.
people that story? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is my first. So this is back to the first deal, right? So so I would go post up the banner signs at night. The reason why was because, or the reason why was because my friend did that, and when he told me that initially, I thought he was doing it at night because it was illegal and he didn't want to be seen. And I think I'm smarter than my friend. And because of that, I was like, oh yeah, you know what? It's the winter time right now. So I bought these signs during the winter of like 2020, no, 2007, right? And so I just got it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go out at night. It's during the winter, and so I was like, I'm smarter than my friend because of that. I'm gonna wait till there's like a winter storm. The reason why is because, you know, during winter storm, there's less cars on the road, and because there's less cars on the road, I'm less likely to be seen at all posting up these signs. And so I got the signs, I got everything ready, got the ladder in my car, the signs in my car. I waited for a big storm to come by. I waited like an hour, 2 hours, so that way, like, it gets like 8 inches, 10 inches. Then I went out. And it was like around 1 a.m., 2 a.m., something like that. And literally, I put my one sign, my first sign ever was like around the Walmart intersection because I knew like people drive through that area a lot. The second sign was like next to like a Hess gas station. And I figured this is gonna be a great place because people are gonna come in and out, get gas, and they can see the sign. And when you buy these signs, what happens is if you put them too low, people knock them off, and then because it's annoying looking. So I knew ahead of time that I had to bring a ladder, I had to bring nails and a hammer so I can nail it in. And so the second sign I was putting up, I put my ladder against the pole. I climbed up the ladder, and as I was nailing in my second sign, a police officer out of nowhere showed up. Like he
This
pulled
is
up
your
over.
second. This is your
This is
second
like
time.
second out of 100, second sign out of 100, right? Um, and I was literally in the process of nailing it in, right? And he pulls up right next to me, and he's like, "Son, what are you doing?" And you know, I kind of like froze, and the first thing that came out of my mouth was, "Officer, I was taking the sign down." Right? I wasn't putting it up, right? I was taking it down. And so,
In the middle
so
of a blizzard.
in the middle of blizzard, yeah, yeah. And he was like, "Go home. There's like a blizzard storm out. Go home." And I'm like, "Yes, officer." So I climbed down the ladder, took the sign. I made sure like he didn't get to see the number. Put the sign in the car. Put the ladder in the car. Got in the car, and I was like, "This is over. I'm declaring bankruptcy." Like I thought the business was over. That was so crazy.
Yeah.
Because this is just the second out of 100, and I was already like, scared out of like scared to death.
Right.
Um, but I called Tang, which was my girlfriend at the time, and I told her what happened. She cracked up and she was like, you bought them, you didn't get a ticket, you should just put it up. Just see what you can do. And so that night I spent like, I don't know, like 5 hours just trying to put up 10 signs because I really was even more careful this time to be seen. And I stuck it through. I stuck it through. Next thing you know, I got these phone calls, people, complaining, yelling at me, but then people trying to sell, and it changed my life.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So, I think a lot of people think like wholesaling, and typically that's what is advertised the most for people who want to get introduced into real estate. And it in some cases requires maybe the least amount of capital, but there is a lot of sweat equity involved, and that level of marketing, you had to literally post signs in areas in all sorts of areas. And you went from 5 signs all the way to 100 signs. So that really shows that, hey, you had to put in the work to get it done.
I mean, there's different ways to do marketing. It's just that that way required the least capital
Right.
but the most sweat equity.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So let's kind of go on along the lines of investing. So if someone wanted to get into the game, right, whether it's wholesaling or just like dipping their toes into real estate, what are some suggestions that you have for that person?
Um, as an investor,
As an investor or wholesaling, and um, to kind of elaborate on that question,
yeah.
what would you actually recommend for a beginner to do? Would you recommend for them to start at wholesaling and then kind of get into investing, or what's the play that you would recommend for someone?
So so I tell everybody, doesn't matter how much money you have. Um, like if you're broke and you start with wholesaling, you're gonna learn how to hustle and you're gonna learn how to identify a good deal. You're also gonna learn how to talk and negotiate.
Hmm.
Okay, so there's a lot of skill sets that you acquire through the process of wholesaling. Um, but the biggest skill set I would say that you acquire is sourcing really good deals and identifying what a good deal looks like. Now, if you have a ton of money, it's different. There's many more ways to play the game,
Right.
but if you actually try to wholesale, like learn the art of wholesaling, what happens is you open up a gateway to knowing how to source deals yourself and knowing how to really identify good deals because with money you don't have to buy at the lowest price, right? But if you know how to source deals yourself, it's not that you have to buy it for the lowest price, it's that you can,
Right.
because it's like, and so there's many, you can do anything you want. You can do buy and hold, fix and flip, but I always tell people, doesn't matter how much money you have, I would learn how to do wholesaling as the first thing to just perfect the art of sourcing deals and identifying good deals.
No, I 100% agree with you on that. In fact, although personally I've never wholesaled a deal out to someone, I
Yeah.
always looked at the numbers the same way that a wholesaler would look at it. And even for me, like I'm limited, right, on how much capital I personally have too. So for our audience and for our listeners, I partnered up with someone actually 50-50 on two deals that I have in Manayunk in Philly, based on me finding deals, right? That's essentially what wholesalers do. They're very good at finding a good deal. And hypothetically, they should get compensated for, finding a potential investor for, for that deal because it does require a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, so you sourced the deal and then you found a partner that was willing to put up the money or credit
Right.
to take down the deal. Yeah, so
Right.
that's, yeah, like, I mean, and it's beautiful because all you had to do is have a good deal
Exactly.
and you can get the rest. You can get the missing part.
And really to encourage other people who want to get into the game, right, that comes with a level of confidence to eventually find partners, right, people who are willing to actually give you money to like give you equity on deals. So if I wanted to, I could have technically wholesaled it, but then I wouldn't have gotten equity on the properties. But because I wanted equity, and what I mean by equity is I wanted ownership of the property, right? I was willing to take 50% of a deal than 100% of no deal, right? That's the saying that I hear quite often. So even for me, like I run out of capital pretty quickly. I think a lot of real estate investors are probably like the most wealthiest, poorest person. Like it's like a paradox, right? Like we're the wealthiest, poorest people because we invest or reinvest everything we have. So a big part of that is like building these relationships. Going to events that, for example, that you're hosting or any local RIA that is hosting. And what a RIA stands for, just for our audience, is Real Estate Investment Association, right? Any of those kinds of events or discussions or topics that are in your area for our listeners, I highly recommend for people to join as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's levels to how you should play. Like in the beginning, you should just perfect sourcing deals and just make your money,
Mm-hmm.
and then once you have that down, you can graduate to like buying the properties that you find, or through what John did, partnering. It accomplishes the same thing. You take down the property. It's just that you have to give up a percent of the equity,
Mm-hmm.
and you take that one step at a time. Like you'll learn that um, in the smaller deal space, people are normally buying and selling them, or taking it down themselves. But as you get into like larger apartment complexes, it's all about partnering.
Right.
And partnering is beautiful once you get the hang of it.
Yeah, and I'm kind of learning that myself, and like I think because I've been doing so many single family deals, I've been just so accustomed to like trying to selfishly own everything myself and build my own like empire, so to speak. But where people really learn to develop themselves as major players in the game, so to speak in the real estate world, they tend to really build relationships with people, the trust of the people that they're working with, and partnering. So I'm still trying to learn that skill and develop that skill. So for someone that is kind of in my position, right, Nick, what would you suggest for them to really take it to the next level? Would you suggest, like, technically I can still play this game, right? This whole single family game, keep buying houses, once a month type of thing, or I can start getting into like the commercial space or multifamilies or mixed use. Like, what, as you mentioned, there are so many ways you can skin a cat. So for scaling, in your example, how did you do that? And what would you recommend for someone that's kind of in my position where they're starting to develop their portfolio?
Right. So you got, if you think you have sourcing leads down, I would get an assistant, and I would teach them how to do that.
Right.
So that way now you can offload your that responsibility. I would get like 4 or 5. I would give them different areas, so they tackle they tackle their areas. And the reason why I would say, like I said, like get 4 or 5, is because some of them are not going to make it, and because they're not going to make it, they're going to fall out. And so that being said, you might as well just train everybody at the same time, just give them different territory to cover. And then the ones that are successful, they're gonna stay, and then you don't have to retrain, because you train 3 to 4 or 5 at the same time. Now, once that's done, the next step is, okay, now you have a lot of time. The next step is you have to ask yourself, hey, is since sourcing deals is not a problem anymore, it's now capital or being able to manage the rehabs, right? I think capital out of everything is the easiest thing to like solve as a problem, because there's so many lenders you can work with. There's hard money lenders, and you know their rates are high and things like that. But if you have to start there, start there. There's also 100% financing hard money lenders, right? If you have to start there, start there. But the goal with money is the cheapest money you'll ever get is actually from the bank. And so the goal is to do business, pay your taxes, and be able to show the bank that this is what you look like. So that way they start providing you money. They start lending you money. Like,
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. And also, just kind of for our listeners to backtrack, you mentioned hard money, right?
yeah,
And this is a very important segment that we're getting into because this was a game changer for me, right? I was so focused on, well, Nick, do you remember when I first met you?
Yeah, you met me at I think at one of my big events, right? My multifamily event
Yeah.
in the Residence Inn in Hasbrook Heights area, something like
Yeah. It was
that.
in Jersey. I didn't even
Yeah,
know where the hell I was. I was in
yeah,
Jersey.
yeah, yeah.
I was like starting to invest. I was literally just starting to invest. I was on my way to buying my first property, which was a house hack. Like I was living in one unit and renting the other. And I thought I was just gonna keep doing house hacks, like FHA, then refinance and do another FHA. So I was like, you know what? There's something to be learned here. And the first topic of discussion was hard money, and I had no idea what it was. So for our listeners, what is hard money and how does it work?
Yeah, so hard money is really focused on helping people that want to buy a house that needs work.
Right.
Okay. So like so before I knew like 203K loans or rehab loans existed with the banks, all I knew was hard money. And so I was told that, hey, yeah, if you want to buy a house that needs a lot of work, you can't go to the bank to get a loan. You have to use hard money. And so I guess I just kept hearing that, and so I believed it. And so the first ugly house I found, I would reach out to a hard money lending company, and then they would tell me, yeah, Nick, so this is what we think the house is worth after repairs, based on what you want to do. This is what we think it's worth. And because of that, this is what you got to get it for, or else, we can't lend you the money. And so I learned that Harmony lenders lend money on fixing ugly fix and flip houses, but they also like knew how to help me look at a deal to tell me it was a good deal or bad deal, or if I'm paying too little for the rehab or things like that. So I eventually realized that they were like free mentoring. Um, and but yeah, so going back to what Harmony is, Harmony lenders, they just focus on lending to ugly, buyers that want to buy ugly houses. They have a rule. The rule is like right now it's like 65 cents a dollar, meaning whatever the house is going to be worth fully renovated, you got to multiply it by 0.65, and you're going to come out with that number. And then whatever that number is, uh, and whatever the rehab is, you have to take that number of 0.65 comes out to be, and then subtract that number by the rehab number, and that's the number you want to buy the house for, with wholesale fees and everything. Now,
Right.
if you're trying to wholesale the house, then you have to get it for even less, and that's it. So the thing about hard money though is there's also hard money lenders that lend 100% purchase and 100% uh, 100% purchase and 100% rehab.
Right.
What that means is as long as you get the deal to fit the numbers that they need it to be, they're going to give you 100% of the money to buy and sell. And I think, John, when we first met, you signed up for like a cash flow multifamily event.
Right.
And what I was talking about, and the reason why I talked about hard money with cash flow and multifamily event is at the multifamily event is there was a period of time when I was raising money to take down properties. And when you raise down, like I was raising money at like I would say 10%. Okay, so if I'm borrowing 100,000, I gotta pay $10,000 if I hold on to that money for a year. With hard money, you're paying at that time you were paying probably like 12 to like 14%
Right.
plus 2 to 3 points. So it comes out to be like way higher, right? So it adds up, right? But the reason why I was talking about hard money was because I realized at that time in my life that prior to that, I realized that I wasted a lot of time trying to go around saving like 8%, 10%,
Yeah. Yeah.
because these deals, you're only sitting on for them 6 months anyway. So you're really only paying half of the total percent cost that you're
Right.
borrowing.
Right.
And what I was saying back then was that, yeah, when you borrow hard money, borrow it, tell them that you're going to flip it, things like that. But if you're going to try to play the multifamily game, your goal is to refi and keep these things. And so I would use hard money to buy as many of them as I can buy, and then refi once the 6 month mark comes around. And that was it. And that was like a way to hack the game because you have a hard money lender that will lend you 100% money to buy and renovate. Um, and then you refi in 6 months. You know, how many houses can you do at a time? You can do a lot more because
Right.
money's not a problem anymore.
Right. And like ironically, like I was doing the burr without knowing what the burr meant, like the burr strategy. So when people always talk about it because it's gotten so popular now, I was like, what the hell? Like I thought that was common. I thought that was
Yeah,
common
yeah. I thought
sense,
that
you
you thought
know?
that was the standard rule. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I do like what investors have done to really make it simple for people to newer investors who are trying to get into the game. And I think hard money to a lot of people, it scares people because of the higher interest rates. But one of the things that I think you mentioned was as long as you have a reliable contractor and you can move pretty quickly, uh, ideally you're not going to be stuck with the property for a full year, especially for a rental rehab. Rental rehab, ideally, you're probably going to get done within 6 months. So you're not going to be paying the full year of interest.
So I think we met like probably like 8 years ago or something like that, right?
Yeah, I think me. Yeah, yeah, 8 years. Oh my God, yeah, maybe around. Yeah,
So what was really unique about that time was like you could buy houses at that time where it's worth, let's say, 300,000, 400,000,
right.
but we're buying it for 200 and it didn't need any work.
And it can still work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it didn't need any work. You could buy it for 200. You could rent it out for like 3,000, $4,000 a month.
yeah,
And so like you didn't even need a contractor because my game at that time was just buy and refi,
yeah,
buy and refi.
yeah,
And like people don't understand that like just because whatever price you buy a house for doesn't mean that's what the house is worth. It could be worth a lot more,
right,
right? But when you get the purchase appraisal, it's gonna come out to be exactly at your buy price.
right.
And so you think that's all it's worth, but it's not. That's not true. That's just the appraisal that the bank gets to show them and let them see that okay, this property is worth this much. But the actual value could be way higher. And so that was my game at the time. I was just trying to use 100% financing to buy houses that are below market value that didn't need any work. And then 6 months later, I would refi. And so as soon as I bought it, I would rent it out. And the tenants were really paying for the hard money costs.
Right.
And my big rehabs, because I had a big rehab on a fix and flip that was like 80 grand. And then it opened up a can of worms because because all these issues came up. And so after that experience, I was like, I'm only buying houses that need like light rehabs, like
Right.
10,000 per door, you know. And and I fell in love with that game.
Yeah.
And so there was there was a period when like I mean you can still do that now. Like I just bought a house 8 months ago, 9 months ago, a four family in Jersey City. It's worth like 900,000. We bought it for 580.
Jeez.
That's including a 60 to $80,000 wholesale fee.
Wow.
Okay, so I paid a wholesaler 60 to $80,000 for that deal. But the house only needed 25,000 worth of work. And it's now making like $6,000 a month.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's and this is like potentially $300,000 worth of equity.
Right. So one of the things that for our listeners that I definitely want to let them know is I think for me, the question that I ask quite often is how did I do it? Right. I always have to give credit to where the market conditions were because the wind was definitely on my back when I
Right.
started. It was really hard to kind of mess things up. Uh,
Yeah, it was.
Honestly, like I remember people were wholesaling deals on the MLS. That's how good deals were. They were
I
actually,
mean, they're still doing that now, bro.
yeah,
They're still
yeah,
doing
for
that.
sure. I still see it now, but it was more prominent. What, like, when I was first starting, And I would never even look at a deal unless it was minimum 65 cents to a dollar.
Right.
Now it's closer to 70, 75 for me. So like even for me, I had to adapt to some of the changes and being okay with paying a little bit more.
Yeah.
So like with housing prices being so low and interest rates being so low and the economy being stimulated, I had a lot of good things going for me. So I have to credit that. But the question I really wanted to ask you is because the market has changed, interest rates have doubled, right, since the time that
Hmm.
we've started, or I've started, I should say, and housing prices are actually still relatively um, the
High.
same or even higher, right? What do you see the market conditions going, and what are your kind of predictions in the future?
Yeah, like when rates go down, it means that the government is trying to stimulate the market. That means that they think the economy is slowing down, so they drop rates to get the speed up. And then when rates are really high, um, it's because they're trying to suppress inflation, meaning they're trying to slow things down. So based on that basic rule of supply and demand, rates going up and down, the market is supposed to go down, meaning prices of real estate are supposed to go down, but they haven't, and they haven't because inventory is very low,
Right.
right? But if you look at the residential space, that is what I just said is true. But if you look at the commercial real estate space, commercial real estate has been going down. Um, the Fed started raising rates, I would say earlier last year, like January or a little bit even a month or so before that. And if you look at commercial real estate has a lot to do with cash flow. And as the rates went up, prices of commercial real estate had to go down to be able to deliver the same cash flow that people want for the different assets that they buy or that are
Right.
for sale.
Right.
And so the rule is true. It's just it doesn't. It's not currently being reflected with residential real estate.
Mhm.
So I think your question was, what do I think the market's gonna go, or
Yeah,
what?
like where do you think the conditions are? And obviously with inventory still being low, one of the things that I typically share as a real estate agent to a lot of my clients is rate lock.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of homeowners that are rate locked at 4% or below, right? So there's no real incentives for homeowners to just sell their house
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
go into another house that has a higher rate, unless they really have to. Now, if they have to, obviously there's motivation behind that. And I tell every buyer that I have as a real estate agent, that's just something to consider. But, I have to be honest, right? I'm
Yeah,
just going
yeah.
to be honest for a second and say that I never grew up in a time where the economy was just like shit, more or less. I came
Already,
into
yeah.
an economy where it was shit, but it just got better from there.
Okay.
So I graduated college in two. So just to give you a timeline reference, right, Nick?
Yeah,
Right?
you're dating
You've
yourself.
probably dealt
Yeah,
with multiple cycles, right, of
yeah.
housing cycles. Just kind of help me out here. So I graduated 2000 college from 2011. So unemployment was really like, I mean, it was not that high, but it was pretty high. I still remember where like you had to get unpaid internships. That was the kind of the phase in college, unpaid internships. If you didn't have like a pretty stable degree, like accounting, engineering, doctor, that kind of degree. I had a degree in psychology, and the only field of work that we're hiring were all sales jobs. Now, I don't regret taking sales jobs because I've had over a decade of sales experience since then. But it was one of those things where no one was hiring. But as the economy got better from 2011 and on, it only got better. Housing prices got higher, interest rates got lower. So we are in a kind of a weird phase now, right? 2023. So based on your experience in history, right? Maybe this is an experience you never experienced yourself, but based on your experience, what do you think and what do you expect?
So I've experienced a total of two crashes in my life. The one in the .com bust, and
2008.
yeah,
Yeah.
2008, 2009, something like that.
Yeah.
And then no, that was 1999, 1998. Sorry.
Oh, geez. Okay. Damn. All right.
Yeah.
All right. We're going before that. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. And
2008 was the bubble, housing
yeah,
bubble.
yeah, the
Yeah.
housing
Yeah.
bubble.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
second one was the housing bubble.
Right.
And I like in a way I'm the wrong person for you to interview because unless you're talking about investing. What I mean is as an investor, we buy stuff based on either cash flow or equity, right? Because we're gonna flip it or we're just taking it around because the cash flow is great.
Right.
Um, and so with that said, like we're always also looking ahead in the market, meaning, hey, what direction do I think the market is so that way I play correctly? Because if I'm buying these houses and the market tanks next day, like I can't flip them to make a profit. But and that's what I was expecting. I was expecting the market to tank really fast last year
Mm-hmm.
because rates were going up really fast, right? And so I had deals that we just sold just to break even, just to get out. But honestly, looking at it today, if we sat on it and we allowed the market to make offers, we could have made a lot of money off those deals.
Right. Right.
So what I'm saying there is like as much as I know, I can't predict the future,
Right.
but I can tell you that based on the data, what it's supposed to happen. It's just things could change. And so going back to what I was saying with like commercial rates, I mean with rates and how it's affecting the commercial industry. Right now, the commercial real estate industry, there's a lot of inventory. So that's number one. That's a problem. And number two, rates are going up. And so rates are going up, prices have to go down to be able to deliver to investors the cash flow that these assets are supposed to make. Okay. Going to residential real estate, uh, right now rates are very high in the residential real estate space. But inventory is very low. And because inventory is very low, prices are staying high, regardless of the fact that rates are high.
Right.
And so something has to eventually break
Right.
for the real estate prices to go down. I'm not saying that it's going to happen for a fact, but something has to break for it to happen. So if unemployment goes up higher and it continues to go up higher, then you're now going to have a different problem. You're going to have a problem with low rates. I mean, people with low rates that they bought their houses 2 3 years ago or last year, whatever, but now they're losing their house. They don't have an option to sell or to keep their house. They're now losing it. And that will, if there's enough of that, then prices will go down. So that's the big question. Is there going to be enough of that? Um, I personally think, um, with the rates that people got in the last 2 3 years, even if they lost their job, like they know if they uh stop making the payments on this house, um, they can't even find a house to rent that's the same payment or close to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people are gonna work their butts off just to keep their houses. So with that said, I think foreclosure rate, if it does happen, is gonna be low. Now, unless like there's a crazy economic thing that goes down, then foreclosure will be high. But as of right now, I think foreclosure rates are going to be low. And so, with that said, um, if you kind of try to get good deals right now, you got to get creative with financing. What I mean by that is you're going to have to buy stuff where you're going to have to be able to give people the prices they want, but negotiate terms where you're paying longer term. They're doing seller financing, so you have to get creative right now
Mm-hmm.
with financing because bank financing is high, but
Right.
creative financing, it could be very low depending on how you negotiate it.
Yeah, I mean it's such an interesting phase even for me. Now granted, like I doubled down as a real estate agent, meaning like I put a lot more effort. I went full time as a real estate agent, in the past 2 years. So I definitely marketed more. I was a little bit more intentional in clients, but I've never had a situation where I had this many buyers. Like I have like
Yeah.
in 1 quarter, Nick, in 1 quarter, I have about 10 like contractual buyers.
Yeah, that's crazy.
People have signed agreements with me saying, hey, you're my agent.
Yeah, yeah.
I have 10 buyers and I'm all looking for homes for them. So uh kind of
And
like
you're not even trying to find a buyer, right? You're like, oh, John, you're the buyer. You're my buyer's agent.
yeah, yeah. And like even for me, I have to be creative, like just like a wholesaler, right?
Right.
I like I'm calling expired listings, I have to now door knock. That's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like the next thing for me. So we're very in a very interesting time right now. And uh, you know, I I can't say whether the or not the economy is doing well or bad or whatever, but I have noticed just in my own lifestyle that prices of houses gotten ridiculous, prices of just food, right? Food have gotten higher. The cost of living has just gotten higher, but um, you know, where do we find this kind of level off of like, a better balance of the economy? Like, where do you think the economy, like from your study, I know you're pretty well versed, right? Where do you think the economy is going to go? Where do you think the shift is going to start happening? Or what's your opinions?
I personally think something is gonna break. I don't know what. And but the thing is, like, as an investor, you have to buy, meaning, you have to be playing. You have to
Yeah,
make
we
these
can't just
deals.
be sitting trying to
Yeah,
time
yeah.
the
You
market.
can't
Yeah,
just wait.
yeah, yeah. That doesn't work
But
that way. Yeah,
yeah, you can't just wait for the market to tank and then play,
yeah, yeah.
Um, because if you're buying cash flow properties, as long as the cash flow is what you want it to cash flow, buy it,
Right.
right? And I think one of the best things about right now is rates are high. So because rates are high, you can have these negotiations, you can have these conversations. And to be honest with you, it might be a time to step it up, meaning stop buying the small cash flow properties and buy the bigger ones because prices are impacting them. In the last 6 months, multifamily cash flow, large multifamily means anything five and up,
Right.
has gone down 8.7% at a national level.
Wow.
Okay. And so with that said, you're getting a discount on the buy already. And then with the rates being high, you can negotiate. You can be like, look, the rates are high right now. You know, I can't buy it for this price you want to sell it at. Can you can ask for a lower price. Okay. And if they can't give it to you, negotiate terms. Let them finance you it. Let them seller finance you the deal for a period of 5 years. Because in the next 5 years, rates are gonna drop, and then you can do a refi and cash them out then. But the point is, yeah, like if it's hard to find small deals that work right now at a small level, step it up and buy the bigger deals.
Mm,
And that's really it. It's you got to go with the flow of the market. I mean, it's either you're gonna do marketing and try to find a good deal in a competitive space where everybody's trying to source deals for their clients, their or themselves, or step it up, take advantage of the market that's actually getting beaten up right now without you even doing anything because rates are high,
hmm.
and then go in there beat them up some more so you can get a steeper discount.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, considering kind of where we are in our phase of life, and like kind of where the economy is, um, I mean, you have some pretty good insight on the commercial space as well as like investing for rentals, right? What do you think about flipping in this current market in meta?
I think flipping right now is still great. I like I said a year ago, I was like, get out. I thought the market was gonna tank. Um, but you have to look at what's called absorption rate, and that's so there's a way to calculate it. It's where you look at how many houses for sale. Actually, an easy way to look at it is look at the days on market of the houses that are sold. Okay, like look at 5 or 10 of the average days on market that the houses are sold, and you'll see that it's selling really fast right now. It's selling like it will go, a house go on the market and it goes on the contract for under like under a month.
Hmm.
That means it's still a safe time to sell properties or flip properties. Okay, when
Right.
it to me when it goes to like 3 4 months, that's when it gets kind of like sketchy. But right now, there's areas where properties go into contract within the first week, 2 weeks as an average, and then certain markets, they're going under contract within 30 days. My point is, because inventory is so low and the days on market is telling you that things are moving, I personally still think it's safe to flip. Um, 6 months from now, it could be different.
Right.
So with that said, if 6 months from now could be different, you should be playing a game where like you gotta figure out how to flip fast.
Right.
Like you gotta get in and out fast, like a week, 2 weeks, and you're doing like transformations. So
Right.
right now, speed is the name of the game.
Right. Yeah, and even for me, one of the things that I started picking up was kind of the strategy that I went back to. So, for our listeners, the strategy that Nick mentioned in the beginning of our podcast was he would go in and do light to medium rehabs,
Yeah,
which is the game that I started off with. In 2 years, I was able to get a dozen properties just strictly doing that. And if I kept my pace on that, I would have had well above
like
what I
60
have
units.
now.
Yeah, 60 to 80 units.
Yeah. But um, I think, Nick, you know my kind of situation with me starting with that multifamily. I literally started with a multifamily. I never learned how to pull a permit. I
The
started
four
pulling the
unit, right? The 4 unit,
yeah.
the big
I
four
pulled a
unit.
permit, then I needed a fire sprinkler system, fire suppression system. I needed engineering plan. I needed,
Isn't it
whole
crazy?
yeah. So what I learned from that was the cost of tuition, right?
Yeah,
But had I stayed in my lane, right? I don't regret obviously my decision or anything like that, but had I stayed in my lane and went with a tried and true method, then I would have definitely had the wins on my back, and I would have definitely leveraged the situation where the economy was so good that I mean I was getting in and out of these deals so quickly. But um, the good thing is that now I've reverted back to that. I've reverted
yeah,
back
yeah.
to just getting back into kind of the swing of things, and part of the reason why I partnership with someone was because as a real estate agent, I've been so busy, right? Actively, I'm working a lot, so the biggest hurdle that I had to deal with was managing properties. Even though I have property managers on some of them, I'm in areas where that need a little bit more attention than others. So I'm investing in nicer areas that have higher levels of income, right? So in theory, right, they typically have better tenants. So adapting was a huge thing for me, and I'm learning so much in this whole phase of my life in the real estate game. And a big part of that is honestly, you and the group that we have. So I want to thank you for everything. Although you probably are like, what the hell is there to thank?
Right, yeah.
But yeah, I truly appreciate it, Nick. I really do.
Yeah, man. I think it goes back to that first note I said about like you know perfecting things. What I mean is like kind of like back to, hey, if you got sourcing deals down, get an assistant, get 4 or 5, and teach them how to do it, and see if they can do it for you. Um, because that's what I saw when you told me about that 4 unit, and you were gonna do this big renovation. Um, I was trying to tell you like you should get an assistant and teach them how to do what you already know how to do,
Hmm.
and then free up your time
Right.
because we only have so many hours in a day, and we look at upgrading our life or our way of doing our skill set or our way of doing business as going into projects we've never done before or bigger things.
Right.
And it is true, but we also have to free up our time to be able to take on new ventures.
Yeah.
and um, I'm glad you see it now.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I wouldn't have learned like there's nothing you could have said to me
yeah,
where
yeah,
I,
I know,
that
I
that would have
know,
changed my mind. Unfortunately,
I know.
it's just one of those things I had to go through myself. And then one thing I did learn though for our listeners is that the amount of work that was required for that 4 unit building is the same amount of work that I would need for a 40 unit building. You know what I mean? Like all of the types of plans and drawings and all those other things that were involved in that. I was like, dude, I should have got like a 20 unit building with the amount of
Yeah,
work
yeah.
that was required for a 4 unit building. So I learned a lot. Like I'm not gonna make that same mistake. I would be I would be stupid. I'd be a fool to do the same thing. But it's truly a learning moment for me, and I thought I'd shared with everyone because you're never like I think the biggest mistake that people make, and I'm kind of dealing with it right now, is you get a little cocky, you get a little comfortable, and then you wanna like try new things that you think you can do, but you really need like to make informed decisions. Because like when I first started real estate, like when I first started, I was super careful. Like I was overly careful. And then, once you realize like how easy the game is to play, then you start wanting to like do things that are unnecessarily risky, if that makes any sense. And that's kind of what I did without really like doing my homework and having everything prepared because I wasn't prepared. Now I'm actually paying for it. So, it's been pretty tough.
Yeah, I mean, so the way I see it is like you get comfortable and then you get cocky. That's how it
Yeah.
works, right?
Yeah.
But we're not saying that you can't do that. Meaning we're not saying like you shouldn't go and do, crazy projects because what John could have just done was, hey, I did light rehabs on two, three, four families, whatever, and then go on to just doing light rehabs on 20 units, 40 units, 50 units. The,
Right.
instead, John got into, hey, I'm gonna do a gut renovation, right? A gut renovation on a 4 unit. Like because and I totally understand it because the way I always saw it also was, hey, get in a little bit, meaning do the light rehabs, and then next thing you know, do the middle rehabs, and then next thing you know, do the gut rehabs, and then next thing you know, you're gonna do development. Like,
Yeah. That's what I
like
was
that's how
thinking.
you graduate, right?
Yeah.
But the other thing is you don't have to do that.
No.
You can just do your game with more units. And it's a game you've already mastered
Right.
with more units,
Right. Right.
so there's many ways to grow the business and your game. And what I've also learned in life is that when you get comfortable you also get bored, and so you look for exotic things to do, like adventures, like doing a gut versus just doing more of what you already do.
Right.
It's
Right.
so it's okay. You're young, bro. You're like 30, right?
Yeah.
Early 30s.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've learned that at the same age as you.
Right.
And so just keep it up. And once this deal is done, you can now do this as a new thing and go big with it. Or you can go back to your old game and go big with it.
Right.
You
Right.
know?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things I learned in this process. And for our listeners, I want them to understand that, hey, like there's so many ways we can like benefit in real estate, whether it's being a wholesaler. In my case, I'm a real estate agent, right? Uh, you know, uh, you know, uh, Getting into actually investing and the levels of investing, right? Are we doing big rehabs? Are we doing medium? Are we doing light? Are we finding really good deals to the point where we even need a rehab? Like, are some of these turnkey? So I always tell people that I the question that I get quite often is, John, what's a good deal? Help me find a good deal. Like, that's such a tough question for me to answer. And like what I perceive to be a good deal will be entirely different than obviously someone else, right? And that's arbitrary.
Right.
Um, what I would suggest for someone is find a deal that makes sense to you and a deal that can be replicated every time. And as long as you don't steer away from that like steer away from those numbers, and if it can be replicated, then just be consistent. So those are the things that I just wanted to share. Um, I don't want to hold you too long, Nick.
Yeah.
So at least for the time being, I guess we'll be wrapping things up. But for our listeners, did you want to share anything, any parting words,
Yeah.
any words of wisdom
Well,
for
I'm gonna ask you
our
something
guests?
actually.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
because a lot has changed in my business,
Right.
or is I'm going through a big change in my business right now,
Okay.
and I want to ask you, and I'm gonna tell you what I'm doing. But at this moment, are you change like are you? Is there any big things that you're looking to change in your business, or like based up to this point? What direction or how what direction or how are you going to continue doing your business for the next like 6 months or a year?
Yeah, so 6 months to a year, I really want to focus on partnerships with people. So in my case, as I mentioned to you before, I want to really step up in areas and markets that are a little bit more stable. And I mean, obviously it has to do with my fear of the economy, and kind of like the direction of where the economy might end up going. But a big part of that is honestly, I'm just kind of getting fed up with being active. I'm already actively working as a real estate agent, and I'm almost actively working as an investor when instead it should be technically passive. So, in order to eliminate some of those things, I have to be willing to invest in some areas that are, maybe they might not cash flow as much, but they're definitely way more stable with tenants. So that strategy is kind of where I'm putting in place for the next 6 months to a year. I told my partner that minimum, my goal would be to get, 6 properties, which is pretty reasonable in the next year. So that's my goal right now. I haven't thought anything further than that. I just wanted to honestly build that relationship with him, and kind of grow from there.
Wait, are you doing this partnership with just him?
Just with him for now.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking like, I mean, why couldn't you just partner with 6 people and buy a house each with each one of them?
Yeah, so that's the thing where I kind of wanted to like talk to him about, because we talked about syndications, and for our listeners, syndications are pretty much like everyone's pooling their money to not just buy like $1 million house. We're talking about buying like apartment complexes and stuff like that, right? So I've talked to several other investors about it as well. So that is something that I am very, very interested in doing. I've created a pretty good system of contractors where I can move pretty quickly. I've like the contractor part in Philadelphia is probably the hardest part that people have to get down, and that's one skill set that I developed in building a pretty good relationship and moving projects along pretty quick. It's just, um, ironically, Nick, although you say it's the easiest for me, raising money is something that I'm very careful in doing, because I try to work with people who I feel like I'm very compatible with, if that makes any sense. Maybe that's my limiting belief. I don't know, but at least for now, in the next 6 months to a year, I was just focusing on, um, you know, building one house at a time, so to speak.
Yeah, I know. Like for me with partnering, right? Uh, when I did partnering, I never thought about partnering with just one person.
Mm,
I would partner with like as many people as possible,
right,
meaning on individual deals.
right.
So like I could buy 3 with this people, 3 with that, like that. Um, as for raising, to me, yes, I know what you're talking about. You're qualifying their how they're gonna connect with you, communicate with you, and so you don't want to you don't want to allow people to invest unless they fit a certain profile. So I agree
Right,
with that.
right,
Um, but I've also done it where I would let people invest, and then if I find out that they don't like fit my profile, I never let them invest again.
Mm,
and then they will change
right.
to how you want them to operate with you.
Right.
That's if they like how, like, if they like the operation you give them, they'll change.
Right.
If they don't like it, then they won't.
Yeah, like I'm in a position where I mean it's a great position because like I don't need your money. That's
Yeah.
like the saying, right? I would like to have your money because then I can do things with it and we both can do things with it, to to mutually benefit. Uh so I remember you even mentioning this to me. There's going to be a time where people are actually going to start asking you like
Take my
here's
money.
money, like here's money,
Yeah.
like yeah. And because I've been I've been way more active on social media than I've ever been in my entire life, and I'm having these kinds of like podcasts and things like that. I've now had people ask me like, hey, you want to partner with me on a deal, yada yada yada. And This year was actually the first year where I finally decided to say, okay, I'm gonna give it a go. And honestly, it was someone who I felt like I could really trust, and I felt like that person also trusted me because kind of putting things in reference here. Uh, we started actually our partnership from private money. So for our listeners, private money is pretty much me borrowing money off the person, and they collateralize the property if for whatever reason I were to default, and I would give them a fixed rate. So that's how our partnership first started. And because I understood that this person trusted me, I trusted him. I said, hey, if you want, we can go equity 50-50 on these next two houses. Literally, like not like maybe a year after we did this like private money thing, I saw two houses and I was like, yo, if you're gonna do this, you gotta do it now. And
Um,
instantly he cut me a check and I was like, we're in. So it's one of those relationships where I thought it can flourish. So um
are they a passive investor?
say it again.
Is it passive or are they active? Are
It's
they
it's
passive
passive.
investor?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
passive. So I'm honestly in
No.
charge of pretty much, and that's kind of how I wanted it because
Yeah, you should.
then it's very defined on
Responsibilities.
roles. Yeah, like one person is funding and the other person is responsible for the project and making sure that things are in place. So it works out, and and it honestly requires a certain kind of person to do that too. You know what I mean?
So, so you know how you were saying trust?
Right.
I don't need trust from people that give me money. Because
Mm,
as long as they give me money, I don't really care. Right? Because I'm the one that they have to trust.
that's true.
They don't need to trust. I don't need to trust them. They just need to trust me. But
Yeah, the only fear that I have is like I don't want to say micromanaging is the fear, but like I just don't want them to feel like you know what I mean? Like I've I'm already a busy person enough, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like I want you to trust me that I'm gonna get it done. I'll get it done in a timely fashion. Uh I like, I will give you all the proof and receipts of the work and pictures and all that, yada yada. Um, but I just can't have you, like calling me every day, like, oh, is the project done? Is the project done? Not that it would happen, but like, there's a good fine line of our responsibilities, and that's why I try to define them early.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like you can just define them and then allow them to play.
Right,
And if they don't follow the rules, you don't let them play again, or you don't, or you kick them out.
right.
That's how I did it because I went through my share of that.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. So I mean, you're ahead. But you're far ahead in it. I think you found a good person to work with. But I also never limited myself to one person though. I don't know if that was a conversation you had in advance, or if that's just something you think because that's what because you started off with this person this way. You know what
Yeah,
I
well,
mean?
I told him that, and it's true. I told him that, hey, I don't work with people like that often, like
Yeah.
like because am very I try to be very considerate of just like their time, my time type of thing, and also like as much as they trust me, because believe me, Nick, it's they're actually coming to me. I'm not going to them.
No, I know. I believe you.
Yeah, yeah,
I've seen it.
yeah, yeah. Uh, and 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 the people who I'm working with, these are people who are in my community. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I would be more inclined to feel okay to lose my own money than lose their money, if that makes any sense.
No, I'm aware.
So,
I mean, we all feel that way.
yeah. So it puts a little bit more of a strain on me, and also like pressure
So
to,
that's really what it is.
yeah, to do. So that's why I get a little bit of
That's why you
afraid
move
to,
the way you move.
yeah, and I don't want to overextend either. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have like every contractor will tell you keep them coming. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but in reality, I don't know at what speed and velocity they can work. So I try to see like and see it myself. So
So what do you think the bottleneck is now for you?
the bottleneck, you said the bottleneck.
Mhm.
So what do you mean by that?
Like what's holding you up right now to do more of everything?
Yeah, so honestly, I don't want to like
Overextend?
pin it on one thing, but
Okay.
the that quad really has slowed me down. It really has.
Okay.
A lot of money in the deal.
It's cool, bro. You're
Yeah.
gonna go through it. Like
Yeah.
once it's done, it's gonna be like, a ton of relief, and then
Yeah.
you're gonna like fly high again, you know?
Yeah. So I'm honestly just reevaluating, like, because I have a tendency, and I think you know this, I have a tendency to go really quick.
Yeah.
Like, I just go quick. I make decisions quick and I go very quick. And that's also part of the reason why I like our partnership with the person who I'm working with, because I move quick, but he's very analytical at nature. So it's kind of like a good balance between the two. He never questions me. Like,
Yeah,
he'll
yeah.
never say no, right? Like, at the end of it, if I say, hey, it's a good deal, he's going to trust that it's a good deal. But there is a lot of like checks and balances between with what we have, and we complement each other really well. But that bottleneck question, I wish I can. I think it's honestly that quad.
Yeah.
It's really, really
So how much
so.
longer until that's done?
Yeah. So how much? So good thing is that it's wrapping up.
So it's
Uh,
almost done, bro.
yeah,
you,
it's wrapping up. So once
you gotta
that's
throw a
done,
party after this.
yeah, dude, I
You know
have
what?
to.
The craziest part is, John, like if this is timed correctly, I don't know if you're keeping it. I don't know if you're selling it, but if you needed to sell it, you could probably cash out big time with that thing.
Oh yeah, like at this point, if I were to like sell it, I think I would still lose money because I put so much in it still. You know what I mean?
Really?
Yeah, I
You
think
sure, dude?
so. Yeah. But if I were to not go over budget, if I were not to go over budget and I wasn't 2 years into it with hard money, like literally I had to file another extension for another full year,
Yeah.
then yeah, I would have profited. Like,
But
if,
but what I'm saying is appreciation has been crazy, bro. Like,
yeah, there is good appreciation.
can you convert it to condos and sell it as individual units for more?
I don't know if that's the play. I don't know. Like,
Is
it's
it
in an area that's developing. Like, had I bought it in an area where it was very, very, like a better class of a neighborhood, then I would say yeah. But
so you're gonna keep it?
yeah, as of now, I probably have to keep it.
Yeah,
So
just keep it, bro.
yeah, because at this point, it's probably one of the nicest like renovations that I've done in one of the areas that it's probably not in the nicest area, if that makes
Yeah,
any
yeah.
sense.
I get it. I
So
get
I
it.
can probably pull the highest level of rents.
And also appraisal.
Right. So the appraisal, has to come back favorably. So I'm actually working really hard, by the way,
I
to
can
get,
help you with it.
yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, apart from that, Nick, yeah, I think this is awesome. This is such a learning experience for, obviously, for our listeners, but for me. And this was like complete raw. This is uncut,
Yeah.
unfiltered. You know what I mean?
No question, no pre-questions.
Yeah, no pre-questions here, guys. So normally I typically have questions, as I mentioned, but I thought this was such a good way for us to just, you know, be free, talk freely, open. Um, yeah. Apart from that, Nick, do you have any last parting words for our listeners?
I would say if you're looking to get started in real estate, get started. Don't wait. The market's always good. If you're gonna buy cash flow properties, as long as, regardless of the interest rate, as long as the cash flow what you want, cash flow, buy it. And if you got no money or a ton of money, start with wholesaling because it's where you'll learn all the skill sets to go far.
Right. Right. Well, Nick, it's a pleasure. And yeah, thank you for being on. And you'll be hearing from me.
Okay.
All right, brother.
I'll help you with everything you need, man.
All right. Thanks.
No problem.